പാട്ടുപാടാം കൂട്ടുകൂടാം മലയാളം FM 104.6 കാര്യം കേൾക്കാം.
നമസ്കാരം, ഞാൻ സിന്ധു പുന്നൂസ്. നമ്മുടെ മലയാളം FM-ന്റെ അഭിമുഖ പരമ്പരയായ അറിഞ്ഞതും അറിയാത്തതും അഥവാ ദ നോൺ ആൻഡ് അൺനോൺ എന്നതിലെ 2ാമത്തെ എപ്പിസോഡിലേക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും സ്വാഗതം. ഡോക്ടർ ഡെബ്ര റസൽ 32ാമത്തെ സ്റ്റാറ്റിസ്റ്റിക്സ് മിനിസ്റ്റർ, 52ാമത്തെയും 53ാമത്തെയും ന്യൂലിൻ MP, ഫെബ്രുവരി 2023 മുതൽ എർത്ത്ക്വേക്ക് കമ്മീഷന്റെ ചുമതലയുള്ള മിനിസ്റ്റർ. ആദ്യമായി ഒരു മലയാള റേഡിയോ പരിപാടിയിൽ തന്റെ മനസ്സ് തുറക്കുന്നു. ഡോക്ടർ ഡെബ്ര ജനനം ഫാങ്കനോയി, വളർന്നത് ടാരനാക്കി, ടിറ്റിരാങ്കിയിൽ താമസം. പഠനം സേക്രഡ് ഹാർട്ട് ഗേൾസ് കോളേജ്, ന്യൂ പ്ലിമത്ത്. അക്കൗണ്ടിങ്ങിലും സാമ്പത്തിക ശാസ്ത്രത്തിലും ബിരുദം ഒറ്റോഗോ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ നിന്നും. ഫിലോസഫി ബിരുദം മാസി യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ നിന്നും. PhD ഓസ്ട്രേലിയൻ നാഷണൽ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ നിന്നും. ഇതിനിടയിൽ രാഷ്ട്രീയ കമന്റേറ്ററായി ഒരു പരീക്ഷണം. അതിൽ തിളങ്ങി ന്യൂലിൻ MP മത്സരാർത്ഥിയായി തിരഞ്ഞെടുക്കപ്പെട്ടു. ഡോക്ടർ ഡെബ്രയ്ക്കുള്ള ചുരുങ്ങിയ മാധ്യമ പ്രവർത്തന പരിചയം കൊണ്ടും ലോകത്തിലെ മറ്റേതൊരു രാജ്യത്തെക്കാളും ആളോഹരി റേഡിയോ ഫ്രീക്വൻസികൾ ന്യൂസിലൻഡിൽ ഉള്ളതുകൊണ്ടും നമ്മുടെ മലയാളം FM പോലെയുള്ള കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റി റേഡിയോയുടെ പ്രസക്തിയെക്കുറിച്ച് നമുക്ക് മിനിസ്റ്ററോട് തന്നെ ചോദിച്ചറിയാം.
We have Honorable Dr. Deborah Russell, Minister of Statistics, MP for Newland, with us. Today, Deborah will be talking to us a bit about herself, her plans, her party's plans to our country, New Zealand. Let's listen directly from Dr. Deborah. Dr. Deborah, you have got a bit of experience as a media commentator. How can you connect that experience with the kind of influence of community FM in our country?
Well, kia ora, and thank you for asking me to be here today. My experience as a media commentator is from a wee while ago now. One of the things about doing a bit of media commentary and a bit of political commentary and writing blog posts and writing newspaper articles long before I became a political party candidate, it helped me to define and develop my own ideas. But it also helped me to get into contact with people who thought the same way as I did, and to form the connections you need in order to pursue politics. But also not just the connections for yourself, but the connections so that as a collective you can do more, because you always end up doing more when you do things together. So that was how media commentary helped me.
Excellent.
Yeah.
അക്കൗണ്ടന്റായും പോളിസി അനലിസ്റ്റായും ലെക്ചറായും ഔദ്യോഗിക ജീവിതം. തൻ്റെ സാമൂഹിക നീതിയോടും സ്ത്രീ ശാക്തീകരണത്തോടുമുള്ള താല്പര്യം കൊണ്ടാണോ രാഷ്ട്രീയത്തിലേക്ക് വന്നതെന്ന് നമുക്കറിയാം.
Deborah, we can also see that you have worked as a policy analyst in private and public sector. What made you to take a sword to a political career?
Sometimes I think it was a silly idea to go into politics because it can be such a tough sort of game. So I started out as an accountant, and which gave me a great background in business, obviously. But along the way, I found I didn't enjoy the day-to-day accounting work so much, so I went back to university.
Oh, did you?
And I did another couple of degrees, and ended up doing a PhD in political philosophy. So I had a whole lot of ideas about how the country should be run, and I was thinking about some ethical and moral theories and things like that. And eventually I started to think, it's all very well having lots of ideas, but how do we put them into action?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and it was, the ideas were about how we can create institutions and create ways of living that enhance people's equality and because they become more equal, they become more free. Because I think the best society you can have is one where people are genuinely equal. And once people are genuinely equal, then I feel as though people are free to make really good choices about how they can live their lives without having someone who's more powerful than them telling them what to do.
Yeah, great thought.
Yeah.
2017 മുതൽ ഏകദേശം 5 വർഷത്തോളം തൻ്റെ ഇലക്ട്രേറ്റായ ന്യൂലിൻ്റെ സ്പന്ദനം അടുത്തറിയുന്ന ഡോക്ടർ ഡെബ്ര തൻ്റെ ക്യാമ്പയിൻ സ്ലോഗത്തെക്കുറിച്ച് ചോദിച്ചപ്പോൾ വാചാലയായി.
With the election coming up, can you explain a bit about your slogan?
That election slogan, it says "In it for you." I'll say that, in it for you. And election slogans, people choose them so that they think they're going to appeal to lots of people. In terms of that one, what we're trying to show is that we are there for ordinary New Zealanders, that we are doing our best to help ordinary New Zealanders cope with some pretty big things at the moment. We know we've got a cost of living issue. People are finding it hard to make ends meet. So what we're trying to show is that what we're doing is to be there for ordinary New Zealanders, for everyone who lives in this country, and we're working really hard to try to help find ways through this cost of living crisis. We want people to have practical help. Yeah, and that's what we're sort of trying to emphasise. We're in it for you.
Oh, great to know that.
തൻ്റെ സ്വന്തം പൂന്തോട്ട പരിപാലനം തന്നെ ഒരുതരം ധ്യാനം പരിശീലിക്കുന്നതിന് തുല്യമാണെന്ന് ഡോക്ടർ ഡബ്രയുടെ പക്ഷം. തൻ്റെ ഒഴിവു സമയങ്ങൾ ഡോക്ടർ ഡബ്ര എങ്ങനെ ചെലവഴിക്കുന്നുവെന്ന് നമുക്ക് കേൾക്കാം.
And we would also, all the listeners would be interested to know what kind of Deborah we can see outside of work, or what could be your passion, your interest, or how you unwind yourself.
We don't get a lot of time off, and most MPs seem to work, 6.5 days a week. In terms of stuff that I do that I really enjoy and that helps me to wind down and relax, I love gardening. So I have a garden at home. I grow a lot of herbs because I like using them in cooking. Got veggies growing. I've got roses and all sorts of plants. There's something very meditative about gardening. I'm out there digging up the weeds or planting things, and so my mind is concentrating on the gardening, and it turns off from all the work issues.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Yeah,
and the fresh air is so nice, and I see the birds, and I love being able to use the stuff from my garden as well. So gardening, I do a bit of craft for the same reason, a bit of knitting, a bit of crochet, and again, it's creating or making something. And I have to think about it a little bit, and it's enough to make me stop thinking about work.
Absolutely. It's good to know about your passion and your how it helps you to get into a meditative mood.
Actually, people say, why don't you do meditation? And I go, because actually I don't think it would suit me personally, but somehow my hobbies or the things I do outside of work are things that put me into that same sort of space as meditation does for other people.
Absolutely.
2018 സെൻസസിന് ശേഷം ഈ വർഷത്തെ സെൻസസ് വിജയകരമായിരുന്നോ എന്നറിയാനൊരാകാംക്ഷ നമുക്ക് ചോദിച്ചറിയാം.
Deborah, we can see that this year was the census year. Can you explain a little more about how did it go, or what were the challenges you have faced while you were doing that census?
It was really interesting doing the census this year. The census was due to happen on March the 7th, and of course in late January and in early February we had those massive weather events that really disrupted everything right through the country. So that made the census challenging. But we pushed on and did it. Eventually, it went quite well. We don't know what the completion rate is yet, and we won't know until all the analysis has been done.
Okay.
But we've come in somewhere around 90%.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
90%.
Yeah. Interestingly, our Asian communities have a higher return rate than that. We know that our Indian and our Chinese and our Filipino communities all returned higher rates. But as yet, I can't break it down by ethnicity. And I have to say, I hate that word Asian and it being used to cover, people as diverse as, Indians versus Chinese versus Philippines and things like that. So that's something I'm going to have to work on for future years.
Yeah, absolutely. You might also know that there are around 250 plus ethnicities in Auckland itself.
Yeah.
So we are such a diversified country.
It'll be one of the useful things that comes out of the census is understanding our diversity and getting an update on it.
The real mix of different ethnicities. And their growth pattern.
Yep.
Can you explain a little bit about your future plans or your party's future plans for the next couple of years?
Oh.
I'm asking only for the next couple of years.
That's one of the tricky things about politics is we have to make both short-term plans and long-term plans. Look, in the short term, we are very, very focused on getting inflation down and on helping people with the cost of living at the moment. So, and that's tricky because if we were to say increase benefits or cut taxes dramatically, then that would put more money into people's back pockets. But then as people raced out and spent it, it would drive inflation up. So you can get into a terrible cycle there. So we're trying to do enough to make sure that we help people through. And of course we want people's wages to go up and things like that. But at the same time we're trying to make sure we don't let inflation get out of control either. So there's a very tricky balancing act there.
Absolutely.
So we've got that economic imperative of helping people through in the next year or two until we can get inflation under control.
Okay. So one is inflation under control.
Oh, yeah. And it should get there. The plans we have should have it back down to about 3% by the end of next year, but it will take a while to get there. We also want to, we do want to keep on growing New Zealand's economy in sustainable ways. So we do want to keep on developing our trade with the rest of the world. We've signed a huge number of trade agreements recently. So there's been the free trade agreement with the UK and the free trade agreement with the European Union. We'd like to be able to sign a free trade agreement with India.
I was about to ask you.
But although, of course, we're open to start negotiating it, at this stage the Indian government hasn't indicated that it's open to start negotiating with us. And, of course, an agreement does take two sides. So we'll keep on working on that because we know that we have, with so many people from India living in New Zealand, we have a huge opportunity to really develop our connections with the diversity of India. Yeah.
Great. Deborah, we can see that you have been the MP for Newland for the last 5+ years. It is like you are like a part and parcel of their life. Can you think of any of their concerns, or have you got any thoughts of addressing those concerns?
I love being the MP for Newland. It's a really diverse community. And, of course, these days it takes in the entire Waitakere Ranges as well. So
beautiful.
Yeah, it is. So in the urban part of the electorate, so Avondale, Newland, Green Bay, Blockhouse Bay, some of the issues there are usually to do with housing and people get concerned about traffic and all sorts of concerns like that. My biggest concern is the one for all New Zealanders, the one around the cost of living. But in terms of my own electorate, the issues I see there are to do with housing, ensuring we have enough warm, dry homes for people. And there's a lot of building going on in Avondale in that regard.
A lot of constructions going there in Avondale and Newland,
Yeah, so and that's a mix of private developers building stuff and Kainga Ora social housing going in. So along with that, once you introduce more people into a neighbourhood, we need to think about traffic flows and schools and all those sorts of flow-on effects.
Yeah.
So that's one of my concerns in the electorate. I've right at the moment, though, the other concern is for the people who are so badly affected by the flooding in January. So I have people in Piha and in Karikari and in Titirangi who are displaced from their homes,
Yeah.
and they don't know yet whether or not they will get a payout on it. I'm really worried for those people because, that's 7 months since those floods and we still don't have a solution in sight for them. So that's something I'm working on within
great stuff,
government, and we're working with Auckland Council trying to achieve that. And right down my own road, where I live in Titirangi, we've still got slips taking out parts of the road, so we desperately need those road repairs being done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was quite a roller coaster ride for you for the last couple of years, I would say.
yeah, it's been stressful and difficult.
Yeah.
But of course, the real stress and the real difficulty is for the people who've
People
lost their
affected,
homes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, great to see that you are helping them and you're being a part of them.
Yeah.
And
I really feel for them because, in difficult, tough times, if you've got a home to go to, you go, all right, this is difficult and horrible, but at least I'm safe at home. But of course, for these people who've lost their homes, the problem is their home. And so it's a terribly tough time for them. So I'm doing my best to walk with them and to help them to find some solutions there. Yeah.
We can always see you moving along with your community, and especially you're a very familiar face for all the community events for diverse ethnicities. Can I ask you how you manage your weekends?
I don't. My husband is incredibly supportive, so he does a lot of the cooking and things like that. What I do try to keep say a morning or an afternoon off because I do need that time off.
Okay.
But I look for events to go to, and they're technically work, but I always enjoy them. It's always good value getting out and meeting people and talking to them, and I thoroughly enjoy going to the various community events that are on. I love all the dance that I see, and from such different communities again. So that's fantastic.
Glad to know. Can you explain a little bit about your family?
Yeah, I've got 3 daughters. Well, Malcolm and I have 3 daughters. Our eldest daughter is 25 and she's a lawyer. Or she's 24, nearly 25. And our younger daughters are twins and they're aged 22 and they're both still studying.
Oh, great.
So I'm very blessed to have my 3 girls.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Great. Have you been to India anytime?
No.
Is that something which you're looking forward?
I would like to. My lovely friend and colleague Priyanka Radhakrishnan tells me that Kerala is the most beautiful province, which is where she is from, most state. Sorry, it's a state.
Yeah.
And yes, I would like to go travel there. My husband has been a couple of times in connection with his work, and he's really enjoyed it. And I think, I'd like to go.
Yeah. And just to add to that, Kerala is the terrain is more or less same as New Zealand.
Right. So mountains and beaches.
Yeah, mountains and a lot of greeneries, and it has been marketed as God's own country.
Oh, because that's of course is a phrase used for New Zealand too.
Yes,
all right. Well, we're both God's own country then.
Both countries. Oh, thank you so much for having with us today. Wish you good luck.
Thank you,
Dr. Deborah Russell. Thank you so much.
Thank you.